Okay, good morning everyone. This is my first video to my AP Stats kids. So as we begin, make sure that you have your calculator and your notes in front of you. A couple of announcements before we begin. I'm available after school on Thursday of this week. That's when I will be back. We're going to have a test on Wednesday of next week, and you need your calculator every single day. That test is going to be on all these different displays that we've looked at. So at this point, you should have answered the types of data. Today we are going to look at how do we calculate these measures of spread. You should know how to check for independence. You should know how to make graphs of quantitative data. On Thursday and Friday of last week, we looked at how to describe center shape spread. We looked at how to compare using those words like more, less. And what we're going to look at today is we're learning goal 2 and 7, where it's what values can we use to summarize. Okay. We have also looked at box plots at this point. So in your notes in front of you, it sort of reviews what we've done. So far, we've learned about how to display qualitative data in bar graphs. Quantitative data, remember, the two most important are stem and leaf and box plots. Then we learned how to describe what we saw, CUS. Okay, so describing the center, anything unusual, shape, and spread. And when we looked at qualitative data, that's when we looked at were things independent or not. Okay. Today we're going to look at how to summarize. I know you guys do know a lot of this already, but we're going to look at how do we summarize without a graph. So summary statistics. Remember, statistic is a value that describes a sample, S. Okay. So a lot of these you already know. The minimum notation that we use, min, description, it's the smallest or lowest value. Lower quartile is Q1. That's also known as your 25th percentile. Remember, percentile means percent below. Median, MED, on your calculator, that's the 50th percentile, so half below, half above. Third quartile, Q3, that's your 75th percentile. And we looked at these values for the box and whisker plots we made. Max, it's your highest value or your greatest value. Interquartile range, put a star next to this because you have to memorize it. We abbreviate it IQR, and the way you find it is Q3 minus Q1. We use that when we're trying to figure out outliers. Okay, our range, there's no abbreviation for it, it's just range. And that's one number, it's your max minus your min. The mean or the average, we actually have a special symbol called X bar. So there's a flat bar in it, you say it X bar. If you took Province Stats or IB Math, you should recognize it. I don't think it needs a description. Your standard deviation, that we use a lowercase s. Okay, and it's a measure of how spread out your data is. Okay, so if you flip this over, we're going to talk a little bit more about standard deviation. You should know most of these values, but we're going to look at standard deviation because it is one of the most essential values in stats. Okay, it's a measure of variability. Variability is another way of saying it's a measure of spreads. What does standard deviation tell us? It tells us the measure of spread. Specifically, the spread that it tells us is how spread out your data is from the average. So when you have a big standard deviation, a large standard deviation, that means you're very spread out from the mean. So if you think about a dot plot, if you have something like this, it has a really large standard deviation because the mean would be somewhere in the middle, but the data is very far from it. If you have a small or a low standard deviation, the values are close to the mean. So something like this. All of them are very close together. They're very consistent. Because here, the mean would be, oops, should be a little bit further over. The mean should be a little bit further over, like there. And when you have zero standard deviation, that means it does not vary at all. All the values are the same. So it would be a dot plot where each of the dots are on top of each other. Okay. In case you don't remember from previous years, you can see all the steps we have for our calculator. So how to fill in the lists where we want to go to get everything. So you'd fill in all your numbers here. You choose one bar stats and you tell your calculator L1. If you have the new calculators, then you are telling list is L1, frequency list you leave blank. Okay, so here you can see the symbol for mean, for standard deviation. And then remember, when you scroll down, then you get that 5-number summary that we use for box plots. Okay, so again, these are just the steps. So what I would like you to do now is work on the classwork. The classwork, I have the answers here, so I'm going to briefly show you, and you guys will hit pause and check your work as you go. Mr. Kanji will help you with that. So I did put my answers. The first one is asking you to create a box plot. Make sure you test for outliers. Part B is asking you to describe it, so remember to use cuss. It's asking about anything unusual. Okay. Then question 2 is asking you to compare temperatures, talking about the medians of them. You have the lists that you can use, or you can use the graphs. Okay. And the last question, again, the answer is up here, is talking about a small warehouse and salaries and whether or not you should use the mean or the median. So what I'd like you to do is please work on those right now, and then you can go back in the video to check your answers. Thank you very much.